If you like this podcast or the previous ones, please consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Frankie'sPod. It just goes to help fund the software and the hosting. Right, just before we crack on with this episode, just a quick word about our sponsor, KS Civils and Groundworks Limited, based in Leeds. They have over 296 years of combined experience in civil engineering and groundworks. Led by Director Carl Smith, their team is known for honesty, reliability and commitment to the highest safety and quality standards. They're proudly ISO accredited and fully CHAS Elite accredited. No matter the size of your project, KS Civils and Groundworks delivers professional, trustworthy service you can rely on. To learn more, visit kscivilsandgroundworks.co.uk. Now let's dive back into this episode. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. Tonight I'm talking to Michael Jenkins. I nearly forgot your bloody name then. Jesus. Good start, isn't it? It's the second time me and Michael have done this because we tried last week, and to say that it didn't work, was it last week or the week before? I can't remember. To say that it,
last week, I think.
Yeah, to say it didn't work out was technical issues, let's say. So Michael joined the REME. It was a Class 1 VM. He joined the REME in 2003 and served all the way to 2019. So, yeah, again, I'm going to say welcome to the podcast, mate.
Cheers, thanks for having us.
And honestly, like I said to everyone, if it wasn't for people like yourself volunteering for this, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's the same 5 questions that I'm going to give you that I give everybody else. So, where did you grow up? Why did you join the military? What was it like? And any stories you want to say about that? Why did you leave? And what have you done since? And your plans for the future and stuff like that. So if you just want to start off by giving us a background about yourself and what made you actually join the military in the first place.
So I was born and bred in the funny freaking state of Bristol, because everybody loves Bristol. And I basically joined the military, as you said, in 2003. And the reason why I joined mainly was I kind of joined cadets at 13 years old, and then travelled up through the ranks, as they say, through the years in cadets. And then it was just a progression from there, really. I'd always wanted to join the military for some reason, and why, I don't know. It was just something I wanted to do, and nobody else in the family had done it. So I kind of started off with the Air Cadets, went to join the Air Force. I missed out on what I wanted to do by a couple of marks. And they basically said, look, come back in 30 days and we'll retest you and then go again.
Yeah.
I went down with my dad. He said, oh yeah, there's no worries, we'll come back next month. About turned 180, walked out that door, and then the Army Careers Office was completely opposite. And he said, why didn't you try that? As they say, the rest is history. But you kind of walk in, you kind of get jumped by the guy on the front desk. He says, yeah, you can try and join the Army. There's no worries there. You've just got to sit the BARB test. I don't know if it's still called the BARB test. Is it called the BARB test?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah. Sit the BARB test and then see how well you do, and then we'll go from there. Obviously, me being me, thought just like the RAF, they'll book me a time and then I'll come back and do it. No, Army Careers Office completely different. Yeah, of course you can, mate. Yeah, come here. Arm around the shoulders, let me straight into a room, sit there, sit on this computer, do the BARB test, and we'll see how you get on. And then, as I said, passed out through the BARB test, got what I wanted to do, which was a vehicle mechanic. And then, as I said, it was freaking like that. A hell of a lot different then than it was now, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
12 months waiting list and God knows what else. It was a case of I passed the BARB test. They gave me the selection date to go and do your 2-day selection at, where did I do mine? ATR Lichfield. I did mine at Lichfield. So it was a case of, they even gave me the bloody rail warrant then and there. Said, look, there's your rail warrant. Get into the train station, get to ATR Lichfield, do your selection, and then we'll go from there. Same thing. Again, within, I would say, 3-4 weeks, I think it was, from the day that I did the BARB test to actually getting to the selection day at Lichfield. And again, 2 days there, did the run, did the metrics tests, did the lifting, what's it called? I think like the Amutin lift sort of thing that they did then. Did that, did the medical, and then passed all them to flying colours. And then, as I said, I think I was a selection July, August, and then I had my joining date. My what's it called? The appeasement or whatever it is, where you sign on the dotted
Yeah,
line,
the
basically.
assessment, yeah.
That's the one. So I did that in December, 12th December, and then 8th of January, that was it. Day one, week one, ATFC Arborfield. Simple.
That's it. In and straight in, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
great.
there was no messing about. There literally was, I would say, no more than 6 months between day I walked into that careers office to the day that I walked in at Arborfield, day one, week one.
I mean, 2003, there was a lot going on in the military.
Well,
It kicked off and everything like that. Did that not
indeed.
play in your mind or anything like that? Did it pique your interest, man?
I don't honestly know. It was a case of, I think, I'm trying to think of what it all was. I think it was RAC that kicked off first one in 2003,
Yeah.
as Afghan had kicked off,
Afghan was
same
earlier,
sort of
but
thing.
it wasn't like it wasn't as big
2002.
scale as
Yeah, no, it was a case of, I don't honestly know if that ever crossed my mind, to be totally honest with you. I
yeah.
think it was just a case of, I was dead set for joining the military. Didn't care what capacity it was. It was just a case of, I want to join the military and I'm going to join. Didn't even think about Iraq. Didn't even think about Afghan.
Yeah.
Just a case of wanted to be in green kit and what's the easiest way of doing it, or being in uniform.
I mean, you still had a bit of a wait. I mean, you said like within 6 months. I mean, what did you do in the meantime?
Yeah, that was the thing. You could tell I didn't want to be a civvy either. I joined a industrial spring factory
Right.
as basically an apprentice for them. I joined up on the whole pretense that they knew that I was going to join the military, and I think within about 3 weeks they turned around and said, "I don't think you really want to be a spring technician." I was like, "I didn't even know a spring technician ever existed." But that was the case of, I'd done it, and they wanted somebody basically to work all their CNC machines. And then somebody would go up through and become, as I said, the operator of the CNC. So their next sort of step for them in their technology sort of trip. And I knew that I wasn't going to stay there. I knew that it wasn't for me. And it was a case, I think I worked there for 3 weeks, 4 weeks at most. And then it was a case of, I was in the back door. So summer holiday, got this sort of first job, and then got fired for this first job. And then that was it. I started sort of building myself up ready for the military training. And then, as I said, January came and it was a case of in the door.
So what was it like turning up Arborfield then?
So that was, yeah, well, I've kind of think it was a deer in the headlights sort of movement of the sort of fear of capture, really. A case of, I left Bristol Temple Meads train station, got as far as Reading. It was Reading. And then it was surrounded by loads of other guys in suits, carrying the bags and an ironing board and an iron in their hands. No, sorry. Reading took a train to Liphook train station. We all got off at Liphook, and we waited around, and there was a minibus that just pulled around the corner, and some guy in uniform jumps out and goes, "Right, are you guys for Arborfield?" Obviously everybody goes, "Yes." Jump on the minibus, let's go. And it was straight to Arborfield, in the gate, to the guard room, to the QM's department. Here's all your keys for your rooms. This is where you're going. You're all in, what was it, 8-man rooms, I think, at the time. You basically got allocated a section commander, allocated your bed space, and then I can't even remember exactly how it was issued, but it was a case of, we got there, we got inducted to the actual unit, so to speak, inducted into the staff. These are your heads of shed, these are your chain of command sort of thing. And then it was within the first week, it was frog march to the pick up all your uniform, pick up all of your gear, and then frog march to the cookhouse, frog march to the sort of barbers. Barbers were, again, first day. General issue haircut,
Yeah.
An haircut that kind of stuck through years and years. And then it was very unusual and sort of uncomfortable to start with. And then within the week, you were kind of settled in, and that was it. That was your life. It was kind of like a permanent sort of cadet camp that I knew at the time, but it was now your life. This was you, morning, noon, and night.
Yeah. I remember the guys who were in training with me. I mean, I joined like a while back. And the guys who were in the cadets, I wouldn't say they found things easier, but they had a bit more knowledge than the rest of us. They knew how to iron the kit. They kind of knew how to do the boots and stuff like that. And I've had loads of people come on the podcast who, did a long time in the cadets. And I think I lasted one night in the cadets. I didn't like it. It was just shit.
Yeah, I was given the advice of, it wasn't my advice, it was advice from somebody else. It was a case of, take all that useful information that you said about and ignore all the sort of military bump, and don't sort of act up like you know any of it. Because for some reason it was like, if you knew about it, it would have probably been the incorrect information at the time in which you were going through. So they said just literally learn it afresh, but take some of those skills and drills that you kind of learned in cadets into the military life you did, like as you said, ironing your kit, polishing your boots,
building your
yeah,
boots,
that sort of stuff. And the rest of it, they said just fucking ignore because you will learn it and they will drill it into you. Last thing you want to be is that dick that thinks he knows everything, and then for the staff to finally come on you. I know this stuff.
Stuff like with you.
I had a gleaming time, to be totally honest. It was 28 weeks basic training. So we did a lot of all the military syllabus for recruits as everybody goes through. So the 12 weeks you go through normal selection, but we did it extended. So for us, it was a case of we did all that stuff for the 12 weeks. Then we did it for another 12 weeks on top, as well as all the educational stuff, key skills, application of numbers, communication, all that sort of stuff, just to increase guys that weren't exactly the smartest bunch with GCSEs. It was just to get to a level for trade. For Arborfield, it was a case of it was Royal Engineers, Royal Signals, REME, and certain RLC trades as well. And it was a case that you had to have a certain amount of GCSEs qualifications to be within that role. So if you weren't at that stage, they put you through the test or they get you up to a certain standard, a certain level of quals. So therefore, when you got to your trade schools, you were a little bit more clued up and you wouldn't struggle as much when you got there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's the same that, they tried to do, or they didn't try to do, they did that, in the wider army as well. But as you go, as they brought education in, getting level 1, 2 and stuff like that for guys who, I was quite lucky that I didn't have to do any of it because I couldn't be asked, to be honest. Looking back, I wish I had, I wouldn't say I'm the brightest tool in the box, really. But for stuff like maths and English, I'm shit at English. Yeah, I wish I'd studied a bit more at school and then, encompassed that and took it when it was offered in the military type of thing. We would when MVQs came in, I was working with like the RCMOs and stuff like that, and we were pushing people through their education because obviously with promotion, you have to have the education to be promoted and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was getting pushed and pushed. And I think it is good that the military does push education onto the soldiers and the sailors and the airmen. That it gives them a better platform in life later on, if that makes sense. What I'm trying to say there.
Yeah, it just prepares you a little bit more. As you said, it gives you something to fall back on, so to speak. At least then you're not like, again, it's nothing against the infantry lads. The infantry lads want to do it because they want to do it. They don't necessarily want to do the education side, but it's a fucking feral key sort of step for when you leave. At least you can say you have something. You haven't just got, this is my skill set, and they'll go, well, that's no use to me. But you turn around and go, well, I've got X amount of qualifications in maths, English, science, or whatever it may be, public services, for instance. At least it gives you something that you can come out.
I mean, to be fair, and I know we always say, the crayon eaters, the crayon munchers, the infantry, but some of the most intelligent guys I've met in the military were in the infantry. And I believe
I know guys.
And some of the thickest were in the REME, mate, to be honest. I'm not popping you or not, but I've seen some VMs that I wouldn't want to work on, working on my vehicle.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the same in any walk of life, isn't it? It's all
as you said, is you get loads of them, and the officers especially, officers who are in the infantry generally have got degrees, no matter what.
Yeah.
And the same with, but I had full screws with degrees and stuff in the infantry. It's just that's all they wanted to do, and that's what they signed up to do. So that's, hey, presto, give it to me.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I'm going to do it.
So did you handle all the fizz fine and everything like that while you were there?
Yeah, it was a case of I was fit anyway to a certain extent. For us as a junior entry soldier, because you have those extra weeks, it gave a lot of guys that additional sort of uplift to go, right, we're going to do this, build up building blocks. Start with a 1 mile run, or you start with a walk, you go into a run, a jog, then it just builds up. So 3 mile run, 5 mile run, and then it would stay at the 5 mile run, but you pick the pace up so it's a little bit quicker. Then you do all your weight lifting, weight carrying stuff. And that was the same, building blocks, built you up. And it was a damn sight better, I think, for a lot of junior entry soldiers anyway, because it gives you that chance to get to a level and you come out. But it's still, I don't know what it is, and I don't know if it's the same now, but it was even back then was a case you didn't actually have to pass your physical fitness test to get out of basic training. It was just a case you had to show progression, and you had to show you're wanting and willing to do it.
It wasn't like that in my day, man.
And that was the thing, because they said it was all about being a junior entry soldier. It's the case of you get you there, and then once you're there, not that anybody within my sort of section of my platoon ever struggled with fits. We never had any issues with guys being back squatted for fitness. It was mainly injuries and stuff more than you couldn't keep up or you weren't at that standard. But I did see guys that were getting through and they were going to sort of trade school without passing a fitness test, basically being on remedial. So the worst thing you could think of is getting to your trade school or getting to a first unit and being on remedial PT, the day one, week one that you get there. Never a good sign, is it?
Jesus. I mean, I remember that happening. Guys coming from training. I don't think it's like that now. I mean, like I say, I joined in 1985, and I joined junior leaders. The precursor to what you did. We did it, 12 months. And they built us up slowly. And again, you've got to remember that we're all young lads then. You're not fully grown. It's 16, 17-year-old. You're not fully developed. So they have to be quite careful with how they beast you, let's say, more or less. But people do break easy as well. But you're right.
Yeah.
I do remember that. There was like a phase, wasn't there, where people would rock up at units and they were straight onto remedial. Yeah, I do remember that. And you were like, what the hell?
Yeah, what the hell? Yeah, exactly.
You expect a recruit to come out and be able to run faster than most of the lads in the regiment. But no, so you moved from there up to you do your trade training. Where was that?
So from Arborfield, we moved then to Borden, to the School of Electrical and Mechanical Engineering, which is Arena Trade School, basically, in Hampshire. Well, it was in Hampshire. It's now obviously a housing development. but it slowly did go for my whole sort of basic vehicle mechanics course was in Borden. So I did a year in total there, including my time so we did our pre-training. So start off with, I can't even remember what it bloody called, but you do your maths level and basic VM stuff for 4 weeks, making sure you're capable of doing the course, basically like a course loading assessment. You do that for 4 weeks. Can't even remember what it's called, but I'm sure somebody will write in comments later what it was. But you do 4 weeks there, and then you get loaded onto your basic vehicle mechanics course. So you had AMEC, BMEC course. So everybody, whether you're an AMEC or BMEC, did the same foundation course first. Did your 9 months as a BMEC, and then at the end of that 9-month course, you do an additional month to be an AMEC, which is your tracked stuff. So you go from doing 432 CVRT up to Challenger and AS90. So you do an additional month to do the additional courses, basically.
AS90, yeah.
That's it.
It'd be nice to have some left instead of giving them all away. Like, it's something I'm excited about, and the AS90 to me was almost like the pinnacle of the artillery system I'd ever been anywhere near. It was a beast.
That's generally what everybody wanted to be when they were artillery. If you're artillery, you want to be on AS90 generally.
AS nasty. They're not going to be getting them now, are we? I mean, they're doing quite well out in Ukraine from what I can gather. So you've done your trade training there. I mean, I was going to say, did you want to, explain the difference between AMEC and BMEC? But you've just covered that quite succinctly there. So you've done all your trade training.
Yeah.
Did you get to pick where you wanted to go? Or first unit, or did you put preferences
so after
in?
that, you put your three preferences in that you wanted to go, sort of the unit, the area, and then a rough sort of idea of placement sort of thing. Unit, area, and then country or whatever it was for the third choice. Just if you wanted to be in the UK and not abroad. But for me, it was always a case of I just wanted to be anywhere that wasn't home, basically. So put it in for any. You always put the Gucci ones first. Everybody does, don't they? Cyprus, Brunei, Belize, anywhere nice, hot, sunny. We'll put that first for them to look at and then instantly chin off. No, we won't go to the sun there, no chance. And then it was a case of all around the sun to first unit, 2-6 engineers in Tidworth.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. The Tidworth Triangle, as everybody calls it. So kind of started at Tidworth, did a tour of the Falklands when I was there. So I did a 6-month stint down in the Falkland Islands, which was actually not too bad. I quite enjoyed that for the weird and wonderful kind of place it is.
We did an exercise, bloody hell, what was it called? That was years ago, like 1990. I'm sure it was called like Exercise Sea Trout or something like that.
Sea Lion, was it? Exercise Sea Lion or something?
No, I'm sure it was called Sea Trout. And if it wasn't, it should have been. That was an experience. I mean, it was like it was an exercise to like backing up the guys over there, get more soldiers down there. flew down there in civilian clothes and stuff, landed at the Ascensions, and I always remember that it just gone into on the RAF banned smoking on flights, and it was a long flight.
Yeah, 18 hours. 18 hours
in
a plane with no smoking.
We landed at Ascension, and I mean, people were lighting cigarettes as we were coming down the steps. You know, like the rich people on the plane, and we're like, "Fuck that, I'm on the tab." And we all got off. We all wanted just to get our passport stamped with the Ascensions on it. And I remember halfway up from the Ascensions down to the Falklands, there was these like infantry lads sat in front of us, and they had a blanket over them. And the stewardess came along, the RAF stewardess, and whipped the blanket up, and there was just a big plume of smoke come off them. You know, it was like fucking smoke signals. So they got uplifting for that. But it was the Falklands is like it's a weirdly pleasant place.
Yeah,
you know, it's quite beautiful. We were down there in the summer, or their summer, sorry, and it was bizarre. It was like we were not pleasant. It's a long way to the bar, and then you get lost in it. I was going to say you get lost in them corridors, but not really. But you don't want to be hanging around in them late at night. I know that. We had copious amounts of beer down there. I don't think I could handle a 6-month tour down there.
Yeah, no, we did 6 months, and it was a case of again, I don't know what it was like when you were down there, but there was I think Mount Pleasant camp had something like 18 bars, and that was ranging from students once all the way down to sort of your unit sizes, army bars, Air Force bars. I can't even remember. All we had was, I remember the Remy bar. Remy bar was a crab and sprocket. So we used that a lot, and the engineers had their own bar as well. But it was a case of it was two things. Falkland Islands was get fit or get absolutely drunk.
Yeah, get absolutely mullered.
Mullered, yeah. That was kind of the key thing for it. Was one or two things.
The only warning they gave us was like, as you were going back up the corridors to the accommodation, they said they showed us a door, and they said, just don't ever go through that door. And we were like, why? They didn't even explain. They just said, don't go in there, because you may never come back out again. And we were like, what the fuck? So we're coming back from the bar on one of the occasions. We went down that corridor, went out, opened the door, and it was where all the people from St Helena lived. You know, all the LECs and that, and they were sat, and they were locals, they were like sharpening knives in the corridor, and I like looked at them, fuck that, shut the door and stripped to the floor. Like, no, it's a nice enough place. I mean, I don't think I'd like to go back for a visit, but
no, it's definitely one of these weird ones. But as you said, is that exercise you go to is a whole different level, because the exercise that we were part of, or that we kind of ran into, was run by the Air Force. And it was a winter exercise, so obviously snow outside and that sort of thing. And it's one of those things of you never expect it from, or you never believe the sort of the differences between Army, Air Force. The fact that it got to a stage where it got a bit cold, and they called the exercise off in the evening. Everyone went back to their rooms to sleep inside, to then deploy back out again in the morning because it was a bit cold. And we were like, whoa, what the hell is this all about? And you know that sort of divide where you go, you know, Air Force check-in, you know, and the fact of it's our hotels, and we won't go there. No, we don't do cold. We don't do the wet. It's raining a bit, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it until that point where the stark divide between the two came out so sort of blatant, and you were like, hang on a minute, it's a bit cold. You know, you just throw throw your softy jacket on, throw your jacket on, or add a few more layers, and you just crack on. No, it was a case of it was snowing, a bit cold outside. No, Index, everybody in. So everybody's brought in, weapons back into the armory, into the cookhouse, back to your beds, and then in the morning, check your weapon back out on the ground again. Couldn't believe it.
Better off just staying outside.
Yeah, that was our thinking. It was more hassle and more fucking pain in the ass to get everything signed back in, to then go back out again in the morning. Couldn't fathom it. But again, that's what we have to do.
For you,
yeah, exactly.
So what was for you after your tour of the Falklands then?
So I did a short tour of Iraq as well on Telex 5, caught the tail end of 5 and beginning of 6. Did that, and unfortunately had to get Kazivat because I broke my foot. That was a moment. Yeah, again, it was one of those mental things of in youth, stupidity, and not knowing exactly what I was doing. Where we went out on the ground to recover a vehicle that the engineers had taken, the rigid raiders on the back of a rover, and somebody had managed to, you know, the NATO couplings, don't you, with the old hook and the ring that goes on top and they clamp it down. Some buffoon had managed to rotate the rover's hook upside down. Yeah, exactly. Bonkers. Hook upside down and then put the ring up and clamp down the bottom. So I'd gone, fuck, do you manage that? Leant on it to give it a check, to shake it, to see if it was connected. Obviously didn't realise it was upside down until it crashed down on top of my foot that was sitting underneath it.
Ouch.
Didn't realise it was upside down, and then obviously I'd seen Hook. The catch was on the floor, and obviously the trailer dropped down on my foot. So yeah,
I didn't even know you could spin it round.
Yeah, because it's to do with obviously it going cross country, so it pivots and goes up and down, so it's got to have that sort of motion on it.
I didn't know it spun like.
I spun, it spins. Yeah, spun all the way around.
How the fuck?
I don't understand, mate. Literally, I was like, how the fuck do you manage to go? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to lift the trailer into the eye, not hook it on. So, yeah,
I mean, I must admit, I might have been guilty one or two times of not putting the pin in. And, looking out the back of the rover and thinking, I'm sure I had a trailer. There it is. Yeah, that happens, doesn't it? You know what I mean? But,
it does indeed. But no ideas. But yeah, so I broke 3 metatarsals in my foot, and then they went, "Oh yeah, we'll have to cast it." And we're like, "Well, all right. Why do I need a cast? It's just broken toes, I'll just crack on." But because they went, "Oh no, it'd be cast, and we need to send you back." So I got sent back to the UK. So basically, sit at Saley Oak Hospital with a doctor going, "Why the hell have they put you in a cast? Don't understand it."
Take you out of it.
Yeah. But again, Army being Army as usual is a factor. I got sent to Saley. They turned around and said, "What the fuck are you doing there?" And then sent me home. My unit said, "There's no point you coming back because you can't wear safety boots. So you're going to take 6 weeks off and then come back and you'll be on rear party." So I was like, "Yep, no dramas." But again, Army being Army is kind of, you left. I was left at Selly Hospital with all my operational gear, bag, rucksack, grip bag, everything. And then they stuck me on a set of crutches, dumped me at Birmingham New Street train station and said, "Bye, crack on, fella. Get home once you've finished and then come back into work." And there I was trying to transfer across from platform to platform with crutches and bags and God knows what else. But yeah, that was fun time. Very fun time.
Sounds like you started off quite well then, but
Indeed. And then it was case from there then is I was due. Oh, and then went out to Germany. Germany was next with one CSMR, or what was one close sport medical regiment at the time in Munster, Germany. That,
I mean, Germany's very different.
Yeah, indeed. It was a whole different role game. But again, we were in Munster, so any of you listeners will know Munster is is a uni town, and you are kind of you're in amongst it compared to a lot of places or what I found in Germany was the military, like everywhere, UK, abroad. Where do you sit the military? As far away from public as you physically can put them. Whereas Munster, well, same as Osnabrück, really. Osnabrück was the same. They kind of stuck the camps quite very close to the sort of city centres. So for me, Munster was brilliant. You kind of got out, finished on a Friday after PT, and then you were off to experience what Germany had to offer. So yeah, it was a whole different ballgame there. And then obviously a lot of guys were
in a university town. You're spoiled for choice, let's say.
Yeah, indeed. And then it was the fact that obviously, again, the difference in the UK and Germany is people tend not to go home. It's a bit of a trek to get back to the UK. So a lot of the guys would stay on camp and you'd end up being more of a sort of family unit, so to speak. You kind of get that sort of squaddy life where you don't go home anymore. You stay with the lads and you go experience things as squaddies.
I spent time in the UK, spent time in Germany, and it is very different soldiering. And we've spoken about it on the podcast many, many times. And everyone says the same thing. It's just the units are better or closer in Germany. I wouldn't say soldiering-wise they're any better than ones that are in the UK, but there's definitely more of a camaraderie. They're just closer. And it is, like you said, because we don't go away at weekends. Yeah. I mean, when they started bringing all the really cheap flights in, I must admit that we started seeing guys flying from like Lübeck and Hanover over to Newcastle. We were up in Horner, and there was more and more people started doing that on weekends because it was cheap and you could do it. It got that bad that I think there used to be a ferry from Hamburg to Newcastle, and it was great. It was like 28 hours on a ferry. So you'd go back on the ferry on leave, and it was like party holiday type of thing. The night clubs. You used to have a right laugh. When all the cost of the flights started coming down to like 15 quid, 20 quid return, the ferry just died. They cancelled it. It was a shame, because it was a really,
really good laugh. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I've had some fucking good nights on that ferry, I must admit.
Yeah, it was definitely, and it was also a case of again, I don't know if you had it up in your place, I'm not with it was like a Dr. Singley. So the pads used to like adopt singlies
Yeah.
and say like you're not staying in the block, you're coming out with us and you're going to come around my house for a barbecue. And you're like, what? All right, okay, no worries. And it was like every weekend because what they didn't want to do is they didn't want to see you festering alone in the blocks, whereas it's a completely sort of different ball game of what it was in the UK or
And,
sort of anywhere else. And
yeah,
you got kind of
and
left to your own devices.
people would just fester in a block. I mean,
Yeah,
looking back, I wish as a young singly when I first got to Germany in like 1986, I fell into the trap of being, it's like Friday, battery bar, fucking naffy bar, pissed all weekend, blah blah blah. Never went anywhere. And then you'd see other guys who had a car or whatever, they'd disappear. They'd go and see the country a bit, And I kind of regret that. I didn't see more of Germany until later we went back out when I was married. And obviously got the kids and you go around, seeing different places. Whereas a singly, you should have done it. But yeah, it's so tempting to just sit in a block and get lashed.
yeah,
And it's
definitely.
good. It's good.
Yeah, that was exactly it. And it was cheap, stupidly cheap.
Stupidly cheap, yeah.
Stupidly cheap. Like 50 cents for a shot.
Yeah.
A euro for a can of Red Bull. So by sort of €2, you were kind of two doubles and a Red Bull in, and you just kept going and going and going. And that was it. That was the key thing to it was it was so cheap to drink, especially on camp. You used to get absolutely blitzed in camp, and then you get a taxi and go into town.
Yeah. And just carry on.
Exactly.
And then you'd carry on. And then get
carry on. Yeah, well, standard, innit? Standard. Yeah, so that was a case of that was Germany for me to start with, and then my unit amalgamated, and it became what is now 1 med, 2 med. So for me, I was part of 28 Squadron, I think it was. I can't remember exactly, but 28 Squadron, unfortunately, their main contingent became 2 med, and then we went, like you, I went up north. I went to Hona as well, and spent a few years in Hona with 2 med. But again, it wasn't too bad. I couldn't complain.
Hona was all right. Hona was all right. I liked Hona.
I couldn't complain. I did my HCAT driving test up there, and I've never done a test any easier than literally getting into a 432. I drove out of a box forward into a cone and stopped. I then got marshalled backwards into another box, and that was me being commanded. That was check 1. Then we came out, did the emergency stop where I just sped at 20 mile an hour and then slammed the brakes on. Second part, passed, done. And then the last part was you had to do a road drive, which was out of camp, turn right, follow the fence line, turn right, follow that fence line, turn left, stop at the washdown point. That's it. How you get. And it was a case of, and I was like, a chance of going, right, I can't give you no minors, right, we'll give you 1 for signalling. Done. Bosh. I was like, what? I didn't literally, you could only signal twice anyway, that whole thing. And I signaled, and he was like, I can't let you go with no minors, you're having 1. I was like, right, whatever. And it was literally the easiest test I've ever done up there. And it was HCAT, driving license, done.
I think the
simple.
easiest one I've ever done. We were in Bosnia, and we ended up with some Saxons got delivered to us, and they were going to be our vehicles. None of us could drive them. So we had to do familiarisation training. None of us had HGV or all like that. Familiarisation training. We drove up to another camp where some infantry dude was going to teach us, how to drive him. And he was busy. And he jumped in the back and he went, right, do you know how to put the handbrake on? We're like, yeah. Just put the handbrake on. Put the handbrake on. Take it off. Take the handbrake off. Right, where's the indicators? There. Right, give us your FMT. Signed. Can't be asked. I'm busy. Just give us all. He just signed us all off. So the next day we're driving from Gorny Vakuf to Vitez. And we're driving them. And I'm like, I can't even fucking see anything. It was class. Luckily, they sent us somewhere Welsh Fusiliers down to be our drivers from. Otherwise, I think we'd have caused accidents. Ridiculous that they'd done the FMT without even driving it.
Yeah, that's yeah. You do get some of those like I wouldn't call them horror stories. I just call them the Cheers Easy assessments. That thing of going. The guy just basically comes in and goes, right, drive it around this little track. Yeah, we'll sign you off. That'll do. Done. Whereas some of them was like, I think the 432 course was actually 2 weeks. 2 weeks long. It is. You do a week of what they call the D&M, the driver maintenance side, which is obviously them splitting the track and changing the power pack. This is all part and parcel. But again, I was a vehicle mechanic, and that was what I was doing day in, day out with the medics there and then with those vehicles. So they went, yeah, come back next week and we'll just get you in the driving seat. I was like, all right, cheers, easy. Got a week off. And they came back for the second week and we did the driver commander part of the assessment, which again was just driving around for a week. in and around Germany, around Munster, sorry.
Did you get to do many tours then while you were with the medics?
No, I did. Trying to think now. I did Telek 11 with 2Med. So I went out to Iraq again for the second time on Telek 11. So I did that with the medics, which wasn't a bad tour. But to be totally honest with you, we never got the chance of going out on the ground with them.
It's not your job, really, is it?
Exactly. So for us, it was a case we got tagged on to, I think it was Royal Welsh, I think it was, and it wasn't even attached to them; it was attached to their LAD, but it was to do with all the upgrades to the Warriors. So all we did for what 6 months I was out there was upgrade Warrior armor, hatches, suspension, lower razor and wishbone suspension. That was pretty much all I did for 6 months. Also out there, so it wasn't the sort of.
I can imagine that'd be quite frustrating.
Yeah. It's kind of, you do get kind of, I don't know what it is. It's kind of 6 and 2 3s. Some of the tours I've done, like I went out to Afghan on, what was it, Herrick 16. I went out to Afghan for 6 months and deployed out there with my battalion, a Remy battalion, 4 battalion. And that was, you still got me there?
Yeah.
Yeah, still got us. Yeah, it was a case of I'd got out with a battalion to just do light B vehicles. So just doing the man trucks and the rovers, snatches, all that sort of, and the sort of the cabbie vehicles around camp. But then from there after that, I kind of spent time with the Vikings, One Royal Anglian, with out in Wahid and Shazad and the PBs and the FOBs. And that was completely different. It's sort of dealing with the frontline stuff, their vehicles constantly going in and out, in and out, in and out. But for me, it was a change in direction when we got to go out and teach the Afghan National Army, so the ANA. That was the time I was doing my job, but something different. And the same with a lot of other things. You get lots of hats, and you kind of got to do all these things that not only is expected from you from a mechanic side of life, but it's for you to do additional. So for me, I'd basically had to create a course to train the ANA into vehicle maintenance on numerous vehicle platforms. So they had, again, it wasn't our kit. So this is the American kit that they got given. So we then had to train ourselves on these American pieces of equipment and then make a course and then give it and present it to the Afghans. So it was us training the Afghans how to fix Ford Ranger, the Humvee, some random quad bikes that they get given, and generators, as well as their weapons. So you just have to pick a team of your guys and then go, right, you're out in the FOB, you're out in a PB, in the middle of bloody nowhere, and you're going to be expected to look after yourselves, govern yourselves, and then present these courses. So yeah, you kind of get that sort of complete flip on its head, that you're a vehicle mechanic, but you're not being a mechanic in this situation, you're being an instructor, you're a teacher. So you've got to get to that stage where you're not doing what you usually do on a day-to-day basis. You just got to get onto an helicopter when they tell you to get on it, go to where they tell you to go, and then present this course, and then run these Afghans through this course. So yeah, it's a completely different ballgame. And then that kind of puts you in that odd position of going, well, I'm a mechanic. I'm not really a frontline soldier. Why have you dumped me here now on my own with 30 Afghans holding AK-47s and expect me to feel, safe that I'm going to be fine in this little environment? But yeah, it does definitely kind of ground you to a point going, you're a squaddy, but you're not just a tradesman. You've got other things that you need to be doing, as well as you need to do all this sort of stuff as well. And that was me I think I was a Lance Jack at the time as well. So you grow up very quickly in what you're doing because you've got no bloody choice, really. You've got to be able to do these things when asked to do them.
I miss the old adage, isn't it? You get told, it's always drummed into us from an early age, really, that, it might be in the artillery, but deep down you're infantry. So your infantry is your first job, even though it's not, and didn't get to do it very often. Unless you went out to Ireland, you went out as infantry. We did tours in Iraq as well. Not artillery. We were an artillery unit, but we went out there on the foot, on feet. We didn't take the guns. We were there as infantry soldiers. And then it was later we went back into the role of artillery and stuff like that. So it'd have been quite interesting, really, I'd imagine. Might have been a bit airy sometimes, but how did the Afghans take to being getting taught by us?
You don't again, you've got that skill you've got to learn of the translation and the utilization of translators. That's a new skill all to itself. It's where you feel like you got to talk to the Afghans that are taking on the course, but you're speaking through somebody else that stood next to you translate it, which will always be an LEC translator. So you've always got to be very cautious, not necessarily just cautious, just aware of the fact of what you're saying may not be what's being relayed, so to speak. So you've got that to contend with as well. So you're thinking, all right, I'm teaching this, I'm teaching that, but you know that it must be being processed because you're explaining something. You tell them something, ask them something, and they'll be able to show it back to you. So you know something's coming across, but you've got that kind of divide between the sort of the English and the sort of speaking part of what it is that you're trying to get across. But for me, I didn't really have too much of an issue. One of our female colleagues, he was, I think now, Signaler came with us on one of the taskings, and she had an issue with obviously the fact of at the time sort of you being a woman, you're kind of a third-rate citizen to the locals, which for us is it's bonkers because obviously everybody's equal. We get on with the job, we do the job as it is. But for them, it's a case of they don't like being taught by women, especially the men. Men don't like being taught by women. So you always have that divide as well. Is you can see when things are going a bit awry when they're not interacting.
Yeah.
Because straight away you got that I'm better than you.
Well, it's their sort of norm, isn't it? So whether it's right or wrong, it's the way they are.
That's it, exactly. So you do have that sort of divide that you do find a lot of times when you are dealing with that sort of network sort of side. But for me, I've never had real issues. My concern was always a case of you just literally are thrown in the backwater of Afghan somewhere and expected to get on with it, surrounded by guys that were armed to their teeth anyway. And you do get a lot of the sort of the green on blue instances that we lost guys through, Afghans on our guys. So for that, it's always a case of you're always worried about what could potentially happen. And you're just glad when you get to the end of that course and you're back in Bastion going, right, thank God, we made it back. At the time, you don't think anything of it.
No.
Don't think anything of it. It's only when you look back on it and go, fucking hell, that's not exactly the safest of things to be doing or the way it should have been done. But you just realise that it's just the way it was done.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, you're right, you just crack on with stuff. We've had discussions on the podcast about whether you were scared when you're in certain places and stuff like that. And again, it's not till afterwards that you can kind of like decompress and think about what had happened. Even years ago, it happens to people now. I think back to some of the shit I've been through and think, fucking hell, how am I still alive?
Yeah,
literally.
Definitely.
I mean, not just through the military, usually through alcohol. How am I still alive?
Yeah, stupid things done when you're drunk. Real stupid things.
Stupid character building and life determined, I like to call them. But yeah, I'm just thinking of a couple of incidents now, and I mean, I can't really talk about them because one, I'd sound fucking idiotic. But yeah, and climbing down the side of a hotel using paracord, that was, yeah, why? It seemed like a good idea at the time, and it was, and it was funny. But later on, you're right. You do worry later. You don't worry at the time because it's part of your job, part of your training. You get given a task.
Yeah,
you just get on with it. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't realise it. And as I said, I don't think I looked during my sort of career in the military. I never looked back. Never looked back. I just literally looked forward, got on with the job, and got down to business where and when it needed to be done. But after I left, and when you start talking about things and you discuss things, and people look at you with this fucking crazed look in their eyes, going, "What the hell? You did what?
Yeah.
You did this? How did you get away with that? How did you get away with this?" And you're thinking, to you, it's just normal. It's nothing different, nothing difficult, nothing sort of out of the ordinary. Until you start talking to these people and they go, all the things under the sun, and you're like, oh yeah, actually, you're probably right. Health and safety never really was an issue. Sort of the beginning of my career. Whereas obviously toward the end, it got a little bit sort of more ingrained and more in depth to what you could or couldn't get away with. But there would always be that sort of the, play hard, work hard mentality. If nobody was killed, you may have got a bit of a slap on the wrist if it was, uncouth for you to be doing it. But 9 out of 10, they just, chain of command just used to let you get on with it, didn't they? As long as it didn't come back on them that you were in the shit.
Yeah,
you got in trouble with, you got in trouble with the RMPs or whatever. There was some way not to be able to get away with it. No brushing it under the carpet or sweep it under the stairs, whatever it was. It was a case of it was brought, into the organisation and you were generally pulled over the coals for it. Whereas anything you kind of got away with, nobody really questioned it.
No, because they didn't want to know.
Nobody.
They don't want to
Exactly.
know. They're like, yeah, I don't want to get involved in that shit. Not a chance.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of, good, let's say, commanders, junior NCOs, senior NCOs, battery sergeant majors, to name but a few, who have had my back on certain occasions where I could have probably really got into trouble. And probably should have done, right? So, but like you say, it's who you know, what you know, and nobody really wants to screw anybody else over in the military.
No.
I wouldn't say they can brush it under the carpet, but there is also the fact that units don't like to be tarnished, and that can be the bad side of it, where people do brush it under the carpet to try and protect the name of the unit and hide the fact that something's gone wrong or somebody committed a crime. And that's happened far too many times. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say lack of moral courage, but it has reared its head a few times in things I've seen in my career and things I've heard about afterwards, and that we see in the press, and the young girl who recently took her own life.
Yeah, artillery
down at Larkhill. Yeah, there's no way that should have got to the level it was at. She was failed by a whole chain of command.
Massively failed.
A whole chain of command. And again, that was people just probably trying to protect each other.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
I can't really comment on it any more than that because I don't know the full story, and we can't, just say it was his fault or his fault. But definitely there was something went wrong there, and it's not the first time, and sadly it won't be the last. It's the way the military works. So they close ranks, and in most cases, it's good that happens because it solves problems and it gets rid of. I don't know, it stops things getting out in the open that shouldn't be out in the open. But sometimes you've got to just put your hand up and say, hey, this is a no, no to that and no more. But, it is what it is. And we can't change things, but hopefully the military in the future will, hopefully. So after your tour as an Afghan, what was next for you then?
So I've kind of sprung forward, sprung back sort of thing.
Oh,
so
sorry.
I did. No, it's not your fault. It's me. It's me fucking springing forward and backward. So I did. Where were we? It's 5. So Germany, went up to Hona, finished Hona. I got upgraded to my Class 1 course, which then sprung me back to the UK again, back to Borden to do my Class 1 upgraded course. And then once that was it, that was me a fully qualified vehicle mechanic. Well, in the eyes of the military anyway. And then from there, again, Tidworth Triangle took me back to Tidworth, back to Remy Battalion 4BAT, and that's where I did my tele tours. But yeah, that was a whole sort of eye-opener to sort of, I deem, and again, I know loads of people career-wise have mentioned it, and it's probably the same with artillery and other trades and other units, is case of, I deem Remy like, again, you're going to love this, like manure, literally, you spread us thinly around, we do fucking wonders, you chuck us all in a big fucking pile and it's just a big steaming pile of crap in it, really. And that's what I deem a Remy battalion is. Too big, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, too many guys trying to stab each other in the back to get that next step up the ladder. And yeah, it's not. Some people really thrive in battalions, especially sportsmen. If you're a sportsman in the military, Remy battalions are generally, and you are Remy, obviously, a Remy battalion is generally where you want to be, because you've got that many Remy bods around you that losing you for 8 months to do a cycling tour of France or whatever, or a football tour, rugby tours or whatever, you get away with it because it's always that thing of going, there's enough bods that you can just disappear for months on end. But when you are a tradesman trying to go through your trade, trying to work, too many people in one place is never a good idea. So you do get farmed off to little units, not too bad. You go off on exercises with little units, attack, brilliant. But again, when you're working in a battalion, it's just constant repetitive work generally. So I was 17th Field Company, so a case of we did all the light repairs to B vehicles, Land Rover, so a lot of engine changes, gearbox changes, level 2 stuff that we take in from external units, repair, and then farm back out to them again. So it's a lot of heavy work. So you do that and it becomes really repetitive. And as I said, you just got the same guys going through it constantly, forward, in, out, same jobs. Ideal again if you're a young tradesman having to do a lot of this work to upgrade your apprenticeship sort of folder, because you get to do the jobs quite a lot and it gets quickly signed off your book. your sort of your upgrader book, which again is good. But yeah, for somebody who's been in a few years, you don't get a lot of sort of chance to do the nitty gritty stuff you would at a LAD or workshop level. So yeah, so I did
That answers my next question, even before I asked it. So I was going to say, where would you have been, prefer to have been? Like with an LAD, with a workshop, with a unit, or a battalion? But I think you've just quite aptly answered that. We realised that
yeah, it
you
would
don't like
always
being a
be
battalion.
yeah, it's always be a workshop an LAD. If you can, I know certain people that have managed to do their full 22 years and have never seen the inside of a battalion permanently,
Yeah.
and have loved every single moment of it being the sort of small. You get a lot of the airborne side, so
Yeah.
you do your P company, do your all arms commando, and you find that you skip potentially your battalions because you'll be earmarked for 8 field company or whatever, or 7 aerosol or those sort of units, 2-9 commando. So you do get a little bit of leeway. But if you don't kind of go down those routes, you are kind of earmarked yourself. At some point, you will see a battalion. But yeah, to be amongst the nitty gritty stuff, I would definitely suggest, for me personally, again, for me, it was always workshop LED.
Yeah.
I'd always take one of those smaller units over a massive unit any day.
Well,
Definitely.
it sounds like battalion's more like a civvy job type thing. You're doing the same thing constantly, day in, day out. And I suppose with a trade like a VM, the variations in what you can do are going to be quite limited anyway. Really, because I mean, it's only got a certain amount of vehicles, so it must be nice when somebody rocks up with the car outside the workshop. So, can you have a look at my car for me?
Yeah, well, that's all. You always get your private work, which always was nice for the old, again, the sort of the beer fridge.
Yeah,
The beer fridge used to top up from those sort of small jobs. But then again, you kind of it kind of used to be a case of a bottle of fucking port or whatever, a bottle of vodka, the expensive sort of stuff. You don't mind it. But then it got to a stage further on in my career where it was kind of like, oh, will you do it for a couple of slabs? Yeah, I'll do it for a couple of slabs of beer or whatever. And you'd always get the pikey comes in with a slab of Foster, and it costs you £9 down Tesco's, and
yeah.
you just rip their gearbox out of the car for fucking several hours, and then put it back in again. You're like, oh, come on, this is taking a mick now. But yeah, you do get that sort of enjoyment side of working on civvy stuff, especially like I did. So after I went fullback, I was due to be posted to the engineers in Maidstone, but they decided to turn that off and send me to Lid. So I went and served down the operational training advisory group, good old OpTag,
Yeah.
in Lid. Again, admittedly, arse end of nowhere. Nobody likes Lid generally, especially not to exercise on. But for me, it was a case of we worked on a lot of the, again, operational grey fleet,
Yeah.
which is the civvy stuff, the training vehicles, basically. And yeah, you kind of get that sort of opportunity to work on civvy kit. So you get that fun of driving civvy vehicles around work and working on civvy vehicles, training, throwing them around the training areas, which is always good, and then loading them up onto recovery trucks and then send them out onto exercise. Or for some of the OpTag instructors, you send them in those vehicles to drive to the training areas,
Yeah.
which is sometimes comical, shall we say, especially if you've got some of the more outrageous looking vehicles. We used to send them out in the what they call the jingly buses, like the little mini buses that they paint stupid colours on and stuff. We started sending them out on that until we realised that they weren't exactly necessarily great at being roadworthy.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like, probably shouldn't be allowing them to drive down the M4 motorway all the way to Wales, for instance. So they ended up getting low loaded everywhere in the end because they weren't the most reliable.
I remember years back doing a civ pop at Tin City at Sanalaga, and we rocked up there, and at that time we were there for about 3-4 weeks, and we rocked up and we got given a card each to give us our scenario, our fake name, and our address and everything. And the old buildings that were there, the fake buildings, we were living in them. Literally living. There had no fucking windows in them or nothing. We were living in them. And I was given a car. And I was like, I can't drive. They went, you're all right. Just don't anything. I don't have a car license. But I was given a case of this car. I think it was a fucking Vauxhall Viva or something like that. It was ancient. But we were just cabbying about on the night. And we'd get given a scenario. Said, you've got to drive down this street at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning when so a patrol can catch you. And I fucking cabbying about in his car, loving it, crashing into walls and shit, and just like wrecking it. I said, well, I'll crash the car, don't worry about it. Be all right. Get another one from somewhere. I said, we're all scrapped.
Yeah, well, That's pretty much what they were. They were literally these sort of end of life sort of vehicles that the MOD bought from auctions or whatever, and then just bought them in, or they were taken from other units like end of life. So instead of going scrap pile or sold off or whatever, they were kind of like, right, these vehicles have been earmarked for OpTag, so we're just going to fob them off to them instead, whilst we get some nice shiny new ones. But the point of it was always that the Civ Pop had these vehicles, they were the enemy's vehicles and stuff, and the training teams would have decent hire vehicles.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a case of what it came to it up until the point where one of the enemy lot decided to take one of the, and they were brand spanking new Mitsubishi L200s that they had. And one of the young private soldier infantry lads took it up onto a hill, I think it was, and thought it was a good idea to place their 50 cal tripod on the roof and then just unload on the troops going through training, which obviously nobody thought anything of it, because obviously they took the tripod, they wrapped the tripod legs in sandbags, thinking, being clever, going, we don't want to scratch the roofs. So they put these sandbags in, put it on the roof, and carried on. It wasn't until obviously we handed those vehicles back that the MOD ended up with a bill for 54 grand or something, which was the price of this L200. And we were like, well, what's gone on? And the problem is where they put the gun mount onto the roof and placed it on the roof and unloaded, the weight of the gun whilst it was fired had made 3 very obvious dents in the roof. And they just turned around and said, basically, that you can't get the dents out of the roof. It's all structural, and we've had to write the vehicle. This vehicle had less than 10 miles on the clock. And when we took it, less than 10 miles on the clock, and it was ruined, written off the day after the exercise finished. It was on a 2-week exercise, and the day after, this whole brand new truck had been written off. And I think that was the same case. I think they wrote 2 off in a training exercise. For the same thing.
That reminds me, I think the best one I've ever seen of that was we were doing Northern Ireland training, and we were doing CMV driving and on the range, and they'd got hire cars in for us to drive up onto the range, jump out, fire at the targets, jump back in, and then bomb off like. And we were stood watching this young officer, and he they drove up to the firing point. The scenario says you've been stopped in an ambush. You've got to jump out, fire a couple of rounds at a target, make safe, get back in and drive off. So pulls up, they both fling the doors up and jump out. And this young officer gets down on his knee and starts firing. And he shot the window straight out. Instead of you know what I mean? He shot the window straight out and shot through the door about 3 or 4 times. So yeah, I'd love to be like, here's your hire car back, I'm fucking going, like, type of thing. I don't think got away with that one.
Away.
Yeah.
Certainly freaking
Lid's a good place. I liked being down there when we were down there for training. I don't think I'd like to be there permanently, but you must have had some good cabbies on the ranges and that while you were there.
Yeah, it's not too bad. You get some chance to fire all the foreign weapons. That's always good. Like what they call like range days and stuff. So you do get the opportunity to fire some of the sort of foreign sort of weapon systems that they had there. Got to do all the touring through the ranges all along sort of Lid seafront down onto Hive ranges, and then our main unit was up at where was it? Up Shorncliffe.
Yeah.
So it was up. So you've had to drive down the coast road along the range front and then up onto the hillside. So we had those mainly for our HQ section. So we had to do a lot of stuff there. But again, these sort of units, the weird and wonderful thing you get to do as REME is the fact of you have to help other units out as well. So for instance, we had the special, I can't even remember what it's called now. Basically where they do the special reconnaissance training for Northern Ireland at the time, I think it was, and Afghan and Iraq. So it was a special forces stuff. So get to work on the armoured, what they called, RAV4s, the armoured sort of land cruisers. So again, we had the opportunity to play around with those and work on those, inspect them, MOT them, and sort of pass them off back again. Again, weird and wonderful things that you see in those sort of types of vehicles is always good, because it's something different. Something that's very similar to your line of work, because you're still a mechanic at the end of the day and you sell vehicles, but it's something different that you don't see every day. So being in the REME is a great opportunity to see these weird and wonderful things and work with these weird and wonderful units as well.
So your progression through being a VM, did you not at some point think, I'm fucking bored of vehicles, I want to do something else?
So I took the opportunity again. It was that mental case of, I got towards sort of the 12-year point where I was at that level of going, is this what I want to be doing? I don't want to go down the Tiffy route, so I don't want to be an artificer. So for me, it was a case of what can I do to something different. So I got to my 29th birthday and thought, I'm just going to go and sit the aptitude test to become a pilot. Join the Army Air Corps. Again, just a random thing.
Yeah.
Jumped on it, did the selection thing, passed the selection interview, went on to do the test for the day, and I missed out on a few marks. And again, they said, yeah, come back and try it again. So obviously I went away to don up on what I could to redo it. Went to apply again. Unfortunately, I was too old. Because you have to sit on the course before your 30th birthday or something. I knew about it, but I didn't realise I was that close until obviously I'd gone through. Again, just being a cocky, full screw at the time I was, just being cocky and going, yeah, I'll fucking pass that. It'd be no drama. Go on it, pass first time, be good. Obviously, I didn't pass first time. I got given the opportunity to do a retest, and then, as I said, I was just too old. And then again, it was a case of I got onto the Army photography course, gave that selection a go as well. And it was just, they caught me red-handed toward the interview. I did really well in the week of the course, showing what I was able to do with a camera and all that sort of stuff. And I've been training on doing it. And it got to the interview phase, and they caught me sort of bob onto it as a fact of I had a cold feet. I was at that stage with my career going, what do I want to do now?
Yeah.
Wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. They'd seen my selection for the Air Corps and gone, well, you've done that. You're now trying this. Is it a case of you just don't know what you want to do with your life? Or do you really want to do it? And I was like, I really want to do it. Don't get me wrong. But it's something that I do look toward doing. But again, I wasn't too sure. I got to that stage in my career and I had cold feet, itchy feet, and I just didn't know what it was I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I tried these things, and then I got back into the REME side of life. And then to me, I was rolling in 14 years by that point, 15 years. And I just went, you know what? I've tried these things. Now is probably the time, to make a swift exit, because like I kind of said to you before, Tiffy wasn't my route.
Yeah.
I didn't want to become a Tiffy. So for me, it was always a case of I would stay the artisan route. I'd stay as an artisan and go through my career. But the problem was, because I joined as a junior soldier, they changed the promotion side of life to pick up your staff sergeant rank. You have to have served 17 years to pick up your staffing, because what they're trying to do is they were trying to force people down the Tiffy route and kind of veer you off the artisan route. So for that it was a case of you had to have done minimum of 17 years to go from sergeant to staff sergeant, reckonable service, and you had to have 2 SJARs recommended. I had my SJARs recommended, no dramas, but because I hadn't been in my role and hadn't been in the Army for 17 years, I couldn't promote. I'd done 16 years at the time, or 15 years at the time, so I thought, yeah, it should be cheers easy, but they wanted 17 years, and it had to be from the day you signed, or legally signed, so 18.
Yeah.
So for me, I was, I'm 2 years out from there straight away.
I mean,
so I had to sit that.
Do you want to explain the difference between artisan and artisan?
And Tiffy.
Because to be honest, I don't know, and there'll be people out there who don't know either. I mean,
don't know. Yeah,
we had our LAD, and I was like, he's a fucking.
What's that guy?
Yeah, what's he done? I don't care. Can you fix that fucking 4.3? Yeah, that's all I'm bothered about. That type of thing. So
yeah, so
the different roles.
So basically, when you join the REME, you basically have the 2 career streams. You get your artisan route, or you can go artificer route, which is 2 different career streams down the same trade route of. So if being a vehicle mechanic, you can be Tiffy, what they call Tiffy vehicles, basically. And you go and sit a selection course at Borden, or would now probably be RF Lynham, which is where our trade school is now. And you sit what they call the Artificer Selection Board. And with it, they test you on leadership skills, math skills. I'm trying to think what else they test you on now. So you do the assault course. You also do what they call command tasks. So they give you a scenario and you have to do a lead task where you are the leader of the scenario. Then you do a leader-less assessment where you do a scenario where you don't have a leader and you will chip in, and obviously everything goes fucking rat shit like normally. Everybody tries to lead, don't they?
Yeah.
So then you do that. Then you do a Tiffy dilemma, which is given a scenario, which is generally very maths orientated, where they give you a scenario and they say you have to get from A to B. You have this piece of equipment that's broken. This is the equipment you're going to take. You need to go get the equipment, then get to where you need to fix it in this time frame. And then you just have to work out how you do it. You get given a bit of time to do it, and then you present that to a board of, I think it's 4, generally officers at that point, REME officers, and they basically just fucking grill you on your plan, grill you on the maths, grill you on the assessment side of it, and then they go, right, it's all about being able to confidently say your plan, how you do it, and then show that if you are incorrect, you know where you've gone wrong, for instance, or you show a bit of oomph to go, no, I would do it that way. Definitely would do it that way. Even if it's going to take you 2 hours longer. Yeah, definitely going to take it. Yeah, I'm doing it. And you just got to basically stick to that plan because it shows you basically your oomph to be able to take on a task. And then no matter what anybody says to you, you can follow it through as and when. So you do that. If you get selected to do the TIFI course, you then go on to the TIFI, basically the TIFI course, which is a HND, Higher National Diploma, which is basically like one below a degree. You go and basically sit in the education side of Lynham now, what was Border, and you just get grilled up on engineering education. Once you've done that, you pass your TIFI course, you then go and do your, what the infantry call SCBC, basically a TIFI equivalent, go do your senior sort of leadership skills, leadership course, promote then to your staff sergeant, and then you become a TIFI. So you will be the leader generally of the command leadership position of a workshop LED somewhere within a battalion.
Yeah.
And you've then gone from being an artisan stream to a TIFI stream, which just means that obviously it's all about, for us in the REME, it was all about the promotion. You could go from being a lance jack who'd served 4 years to a staff sergeant within 18 months generally, because that's how long the course was.
Yeah. I mean, we have
a rapid progression.
So the artillery has something, I wouldn't say similar, but, you know, we have the gunnery careers course that you get selected for as a sergeant. And you've got to have recommendations. And they go off and do a 12-month course at Larkhill and come out as SMIGs, which is Sergeant Major Instructor in Gunnery. So you can go, you can be a sergeant, and then when if you pass the course and you pick up, you come off as a WO2.
They're very similar.
Yeah, they're the guys who go out to units and teach us gunnery and make sure we're doing it correctly. It puts a few people's noses out of joint when they see guys getting selected that you probably wouldn't think deserve it or can do it. And I wouldn't, but that's the same with anything in life. Somebody's always going to be pissed off that you've been selected to do something. But the guys who go off and do it, if they come back and they know the shit, they're really, really good at what they're doing.
Yeah, you get it as well in the REME. So you get your TIFI vehicle, then you get your TIFI weapons as well. So for your armors, that was the case of that. There were certain streams that obviously REME like tech, TIFI avionics as well. So you had the tech role, but there was certain trades that you couldn't. So your your recovery mechanic. There wasn't a TIFI stream for recovery mechanic. For them to go TIFI, they'd have to retrade.
Yeah.
And then go through the stream that way, which again is for a lot of, especially Recamax, they don't particularly want to do an entire VMs course just so they can go TIFI.
Yeah.
They just never used to work.
Most don't want to do anything.
No, generally. But basically swim around in ditches and play with heavy kit and equipment. But you've got that same with, so the REME TIFI course, I know it's equivalent to the Royal Engineers have got a similar thing, the same as you gunners have got, was their Clark Works and their what's the other one? MPF, mechanical plant form. Same sort of scenario with them is you go away for that sort of 18 months course, and then you go and learn to be the be all and end all of your trade stream, and then you'd come out the other side as a staff sergeant, WO2 or whatever it may be, and you would be then the highest point you can sort of trade wise. So you were easily more promotable then. So for us, it was a case of an ASM WO1. You tend not to get artisans down that route. It's an artificer sergeant major, so your ASM is to get WO1. 9 out of 10, you have to go down the TIFI route. So for me, I hit that sort of couldn't promote because I haven't done long enough, and I couldn't promote past the WO2 because I didn't go down the TIFI route. And for me, it was just a case of I kind of got stuck in place, and it also streamlines your postings as well.
Yeah,
which is another bit of a ball ache because again, they try and streamline you into that TIFI route. And to encourage you to do that, they obviously minimize the amount of PIDs available or postings available for artisans. So then again, I was kind of stuck between rock and a hard place. So for me, 2018, I was working with the Anglians at Woolwich, and I just received my posting order to where was it? Bovington, Armoured Trials and Development Unit
Oh, that could have been
in Bovington.
interesting, though.
It was a very interesting position. The only drama was my wife had started her own business. My son was in school in Maidstone, so I was back to becoming potentially weekend husband, weekend dad again, because they didn't want to move because again she'd started her own business. Why should she move? She moved, and then on top of that was you were the be all and end all of the workshop. There wasn't any other sort of military personnel bar the sergeant there, because they ran the workshop for the trials and development teams. So you were the horrible and bad as it sounds is you were the bit, because trials and development teams would come in, use all your facilities, use your equipment, use your workshop, be your workforce whilst the vehicles were being trialed and developed in that situation. Once they'd finished, they buggered off, and then everything was back in your ball court again until the next team came in. So you were in charge of the entire workshop, lifting, equipment register, calibration register, all the kit and equipment. Everything was yours until the trial development team came in, and then it wasn't yours anymore, it was theirs. So you had to deal with all the admin of it, but didn't actually have ownership of it, so to speak.
Yeah, I kind of get that now. That'll be a right ball, like,
So
to be honest.
So for me, it was the case of I couldn't do the weekend husband, weekend dad thing again. I couldn't do the consistent sort of nights out of bed stuff, and because I'd had 3 6 engineers, sorry, which is in Maidstone. I'd been given that posting order twice and taken off me twice within weeks of due posting. So first to Optag and then the second to Woolwich with the Anglians. And I was like, third time's a treat, surely. Third time lucky, got to be there now. And then, ATDU came in and I was like, you know what? It's probably time. So, so I got to that stage. I just thought, do you know what? We are just numbers on a bit of paper. We're just, chess pieces to move around the board. I'm not really sort of appreciated, so to speak. It's probably time for me to leave. And I did. I went to see my line manager, said, look, I'm going to throw my sort of hat out and say, look, I'm done. Went to the careers officer, the RCMO department, and then literally just JPA, 7 clicks to freedom. And then fortunately, I was very lucky and unlucky. Lucky because I could have been posted there for a year, but because it was such a sort of niche posting and very required posting for somebody full on, they turned my posting order off and said, look, you can stay in Woolwich for a year, do all your resettlement and go from there. And I thought, brilliant, fantastic. The guy that had come in to replace me was from GHQ in Germany, or I think he was working for in Belgium, sorry, for the GHQ lot.
Yeah.
I can't think where it is. It's in Belgium somewhere. He was working there. Obviously, he got given his posting order to come to Woolwich. And I was thinking, brilliant, I've got a replacement. Fantastic. Got a replacement. I haven't got to move. 12 months. Cheers, easy, resettle. He got there. Nah. Yeah, good old army. Like to throw a spanner in the works, didn't they? Posted in with the battalion with the unit to Estonia for 6 months. The AQMS, who was in charge of the LAD. I thought, yeah, he's still here. No, he went to Afghan with somebody else for 6 months. And I was in charge of the entire workshop for 6 months until they got back. And then obviously my resettlement went from 12 months to 6 months. And not exactly the greatest thing in the world. But again, you just got to take the rough with the smooth. Resettlement isn't the easiest to deal with anyway, let alone with less than 6 months on your sort of tick card left as you're counting the days down.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's definitely.
Did you find you got what? Obviously it screwed you up with the 6 months and that. And I know a lot of people don't, even though they're signed off and everything, or they're like me, come to the end of your time, you're not really prepared for resettlement, and it's kind of a minefield. It's as if, I don't know, people don't really care, about you. One, because you're getting out, or whatever. But I don't think you get the help that you should get with resettlement. How did you find that?
No, I totally agree with you, and I feel that the resettlement is something that's very overlooked, especially in the military. But as you said, the thing is, right, is you've got these two sort of levels to it. One is it's fantastic because the MOD give you that opportunity. A lot of civvy jobs wouldn't give you that opportunity to resettle, to move across from job to job. Whereas on the other hand, it's a case of I put it again, I don't like to sort of describe us as the same thing, but prisoners who go into prison for a long time, have to then resettle and sort of transition between being a criminal and being
Yeah,
a
no,
working
it's a
member of
good way of putting
society. And for us, I feel that we don't get the support where they generally do. So your case of you are institutionalized. You are basic. You've lived a good England there. You've lived in green kit, the military way for however many years. Even if you've done sort of like the minimum service, 4 to 6 years, for instance, even that time is you basically grown and you have made the military your life.
Yeah.
So you know everything militarily. But when you come out into Civvy Street, there's a whole different plethora of stuff that you've got to deal with that is completely alien. And I put it out there before to a fair few of my friends and stuff is we as veterans aren't broken. We're just adapting. And that's exactly what we have to do. We have to adapt our mentality to what life on Civvy Street is.
Mm.
But for many, they've never experienced it. For me, I never really experienced it. As I said to you at the beginning, 6 months. I spent 6 months as a civvy, basically, from sort of 16 to 16 and a half sort of thing, as a civvy. And it's not really a civvy, it's a fucking kid.
Yeah.
I was a kid when I joined, and I grew very quickly and matured very quickly into a military environment. So for my life has been 6.5 years of living in green kit. So you tell me where to go, I will be there no matter what. Whereas when I got into Civvy Street, it's a case of you're under your own steam. You are the captain of your ship. For instance, you start a new job, they expect you to just be there on Monday with whatever it is that you get or whatever you need, and that's where it happens and that's where it begins. Whereas for us, it's a case of we get told where to be, when to be there, with what kit, issued with what kit, and then that's it. We're there. We're done. Whereas when I joined sort of the civvy revolution, so to speak, it was a minefield. And for me, transition never sort of prepared you for that because you never got given the opportunity to sort of sense it and feel it because it was 12 months within the military environment.
Yeah.
So you did this, what they call the CTP, Careers Transition Partnership, whatever. And as always, and again, I don't like bad mouth in the military. I don't like bad mouth in the majority of people. I get onto a bit of a rant sometimes, obviously, like every squaddy does and every veteran does. But it comes to, I don't like having the lowest bidder on contracts, and that's what the military does. So with CTP, I always feel like they've just gone for the lowest bidder. They're doing their mandated tick box exercises. They go, right, you need to do X, Y, Z workshops. Once you've done that, you're free as a bird, do what you want. And that's what the majority of squaddies do because they go, get this done, and then I'm free. I can do whatever I want. But for a large portion of it, you don't really get taught that much. And you don't really understand what it is like to be a civilian working on Civvy Street. So for me, fortunately, I was married and I lived off camp. So I bought my own place utilising the Forces Help to Buy scheme. So I lived in a flat in Maidstone and I commuted to Lydd. So I did 2 years at Lydd, commuting to and fro in. Did Woolwich, 5 years, commuting to and fro in. So for me, I lived in Civvy Street and I got that experience of what life is like commuting to a place of work, paying my mortgage. And when I say me and I mean my wife, obviously.
Yeah.
My wife was the one that dealt with a large proportion of it because I was never fucking there, constantly on exercise, constantly on tour. So I was never there. But, it gave you that sense of, pay your bills, council tax, water bill, electricity bills, all that sort of life stuff, debt management. I didn't have a fucking clue.
No.
So this is the prime example of debt management is for me, I was a good boy, if I couldn't afford it, I never bought it, so I didn't be one of these stupid individuals that buy, most powerful car they can on finance and then wrap it around a tree and then pay it for the next 30 years or whatever it was. I was always a case of if I couldn't afford it, I didn't buy it. So I didn't understand credit score, for instance. What the hell was a credit score? So I got out, I got to my flat, my missus, we bought it together. And then I went and said, right, we'll get a TV, usual sort of stuff you do when you get out, TV, buy some furniture. And you're like, well, I've got no money. And my wife's like, yeah, we'll just get it on finance. And as she does, because she knew and understood about what finance was. I went to Curry's, I think it was, or Dixon's at the time, or whatever it was, and tried to get a TV. I couldn't even buy a TV because I had no credit score. Because I didn't understand to borrow money or to borrow a portion of money, you have to first really get yourself in debt and then show yourself paying it back to to build this magical mystery score that you so say get. Didn't have a clue, didn't understand it whatsoever. And it was so many things that I was kind of dropped into and kind of had to jump both feet in of what life was like on Civvy Street. I just didn't know because nobody took the opportunity really to tell you what it's like and to actually live it. So for me, and especially with being contactable by them, like I left, I'm a minority according to a lot of guys I spoke to, where I did have a phone call from somebody from CTP about 8 months later, 9 months after I left, basically asking me how was I getting on. But again, there's no digging, there's no nothing. Because the fact that I went, yeah, all good, thanks. Okay, no worries, if you've got any dramas, here's my number, see you later, bye.
Yeah.
Hung up. That was it from since. And I've been out since 2019, not fucking heard from them since. Whereas I know for a lot of guys, younger guys who got out and really, really struggled, they wouldn't be open to having a conversation with somebody saying that they're struggling. You know, like loads of squaddies are. We don't express what it is that we're having issues with. We just, again, squaddy mentality, stick your head down, move on, get on with it. For instance, if I had somebody who dug into it a little deeper, could be able to be that person to say, look, I can see you're having a bit of issues. How's about we try and get you on a course or try to give you some more sort of trainable skills or upskill you or do this or do that. But there's nothing ever the sort of, but then a lot of people are then forced towards sort of charities and stuff like that, which we all know once you get out and once you understand how charities work, or for a large portion of them, it's very much a unfortunate business model. Yeah. They understand that they're a business, they have to make money, they have shareholders, that come in that own parts of the business. And a lot of that profit that they make goes back to shareholders because they're still a business. So you do look at it from a charity side and see how much money is actually put aside to actually help people. Unfortunately, pitiful, isn't it? To what they can actually attribute to helping, especially veterans and veteran organisations. But this is charity wide, isn't it? So you do feel that a lot of guys don't get helped by the military, fall onto the charities to help. And for large charities, they're very business driven, and a lot of the smaller charities want to help, but just don't have the financial aid to help people. And that's what is the scary thing for a lot of guys coming out. And I think that's a large proportion of maybe their recruitment as well, and maybe the retention side as well. We know how horrendous that is. But I do look at it from again, a different view, is if they had more options for resettlement and retraining after guys left, it may give people more of incentive to join. Whereas I think guys joining, they don't have a lot of incentive while they're in now, apparently. Lots of things, bonuses have been taken away, lots of expense sort of stuff that they used to get, bonuses, budgets or whatever they were living through. Advantage like adventure training. Nobody really gets adventure training anymore because there's just no money in the budget. So a lot of the advantages of joining aren't there. And then obviously getting out at the end, there doesn't seem to be the assistance and support once you leave. So a lot of guys are going, why am I going to put myself through that to work in the military and live in the military when there's a lot of stuff on the outside that I can't cope with? But again, for me, transition was always a hard sell and a hard portion on me because there was so much things we could do, but not a lot of things support-wise there to help you.
Yeah, I get that.
I don't know if a lot of you guys have you felt it yourself when obviously you got out.
I mean, I was kind of lucky. I got sent home for 6 months. They didn't have a job for me anymore, and I was kind of concentrating on the job I wanted to do, and which was working in IT. And I secured a job before I actually got out, so I was working for the company I'm with now for my last month of service actually. So that was nice. 2 wages that month. Loads of fucking tax.
Definitely.
Loads of tax. But I was quite lucky in that respect. I got out, got into a job. We ended up in a house, so I didn't have to seek any help really. But you're right about the not understanding, like paying this, paying that, this, that, credit and this, that, whatever. It took me quite a while to get where I am now, and it wasn't until recently that I had to fucking grow up, really, to be honest. 27 years in the army. I never grew up one day. I was a fucking idiot, and loved it. Recently, you come to, and I think it's again through with the podcasts and stuff like that you hear other people's stories, and some people have, I interviewed a guy 2 nights ago, and I said, well, and he's literally just got out, like literally. In fact, I think he's still serving, but he's on his last, he's just done his resettlement and everything. And he loved it. He said it was great, but he had the time, and he was given the time. He was given the whole, the whole 6 months off type of thing to go and do his resettlement. And he praised CTP and the courses that you can do, everything. My course, I went down to Aldershot to do a systems administrator course. And we didn't, there was me there was guys from the RAF, guys from the Navy. And the course was kind of sold to us as a systems admin. So we were going to go, all right, okay, we're going to come off qualified to be a systems admin. No, you do 3/4 of the course with no exam. So it was pointless, absolutely pointless. I just wasted a course completely.
Yeah, there's a few of those. Few of those still kicking about. But for that so I did the similar sort of thing. I went and did but I got the qualification out of it. I did a social domestic installation course for electrics. So 18th edition, wiring edition, sorry. So for me, it was very much, the drama with it was on-site experience. So for us is you get belt fed, and we're brilliant. Being in the military, you're brilliant at being belt fed information, retaining it for that period of time, being examined on it, testing, passing, done, jobs are good, and you come out. But for me, it's always the thing of, and the same with a lot of the other courses I did in CTP, was you got a qualification, but you couldn't obviously gain the experience of what it was to do the job on site. So for me, when I got out, unless I went into business by myself and become a self-employed and finding my own business, I always felt like I was being basically a trainee again, because I had the ability to do what it was that they needed me to do. I had the ticket to say you could do it, but I didn't have the experience of doing the actual work side of it. So for us, brilliant, you can do circuits on a test board. Brilliant, you know how to wire in a ring main, you know how to do circuits, you know how to do this, you know how to test and all that sort of stuff. But when it came to going into somebody's house and then going, right, I need to add a ring main in or a spur off a plug and put another plug onto that circuit, it's all good until you got to go, well, I need to get under the floor, I need to rip floorboards up, I need to drill through joists and thread cables through, and then at the end of it go, shit, now I need to make it right. And now I've got to put all the flooring back down. I've got to fill in big tracks that I've left in somebody's wall, for instance. And it was the same thing of going, you could do all this, no dramas, and then come out and then have to join up as a trainee or join up as a junior fucking tradie or whatever it is in the building world, because I never got that far, because I knew exactly what would happen is I'd join this company if they would even be willing to take me and take a huge pay cut. And for me, and the same with a lot of sort of senior ranks and all that sort of stuff, it's always down to money. And for us, if you've done your 22 years and you'll obviously be similar where you have a pension paying out, you may not need as high a job salary wise because you've got your pension to top you up. Whereas, because obviously I was not necessarily the smartest of guys and I got out at 16 and a bit years rather than the 22. I don't have a pension. So for me is I have to earn the same as I was earning in the military. If I didn't, then I'd still have all these bills to pay, but I'd have less wages to pay them. So I was stuck between the rock and the hard place. And it was the same with getting jobs on Civvy Street. Again, CTV banging the drums about senior management. You can be senior management. And you do go into these you go into these places as this sort of this level, and you give your CVs and stuff, and you go in and you go, right, you've got what can you tell us about yourself? Oh, I've done this, I've done that, I've got this experience, that experience, and then you turn around and go, well, I like the sound of you. How much commercial experience have you got? And you go, but none, because I've worked in the MOD. This is all I know. The MOD is the world I know. I don't have any commercial experience because this is it. And they go, ooh, all right, no, we're gonna check other options. And you're like, well, what have you got sort of lower down? Have you got any junior entry positions available? And they're like, well, no, because you're overqualified. And you're like, what's that got to do with it? Because we as squaddies don't understand. For us, we look at a junior position and go, no dramas, jump in there, do that for a few years, build my experience, and then I'll jump up and go to the next level. As civvies look at it, they go, you're overqualified for that position. You're going to come in, you're going to do 2 weeks, you'll get bored, and you'll leave. And then we've got to pay, because recruiting costs them money. And again, it's something you don't understand. Of when somebody gets taken on by, especially a recruiting agency, that could be anywhere up to like 10, 15 grand that a company would pay for a recruiting agent to find somebody to fit that position. And if they fit it and they join, that's 15 grand in a recruiter's pocket. You leave after 2 weeks and that business ain't happy because they've just spent all that money recruiting you. But I found that I was between that rock and a hard place again, going, well, I've got no commercial experience, but you won't take me on so I can get that experience because you're afraid that I'm going to leave. So then I was going, right, what do I do now? And then I go, well, I'm a tradesman, so I'm going to go back to my tools again. And then it's always that thing of going, civvy garages. Civvy garages don't pay mechanics very much. It's like a, 24 to 26 grand a year job. So and I was like, I can't drop from close to 40 grand a year to 26. And I don't know very many people who could, you know? And then you've got to kind of branch out then to go, well, HGVs pay a little bit more. Maybe I'll go into HGV world and work on trucks. And it's the same thing. Finding positions that are open for us to jump into when you're competing against so many other tradesmen within those sort of realms.
Yeah.
For a position for somebody who really doesn't, again, military don't like to fucking knock it, but when you go up the ranks, you tend to fall away from the tools and you go into management, don't you? So I've got to then compete against tradesmen that have been doing it for years and years on tools for me to slide back into being on tools again when I've got to build my experience back up. So for me, it was always a case of trying to find that position that pays me money I need and doing a job that's going to satisfy me work-wise. And you do find a lot of guys that just can't find
They can't find it.
especially satisfaction, and or can't find that position. And for me now, I've again going to your sort of the last sort of question you asked is what am I doing now? Is I found, luckily for me, like you did, I went from being in the military, I got to the last sort of absolute crap of myself because I had nothing. I had no job by that point. 30 days left to go, where I'm going to walk out that gate to nothing, and I was very, very fucking worried by that point, going, shit, I need to get a grip. And fortunately, I got picked up on by a recruiter, funny enough, on LinkedIn. And again, for anybody who's going through that transition time, LinkedIn is your kind of a be all and end all. If you're on LinkedIn, at least then you're open to offers or whatever it's called. You can flick a little tab and go, I'm open to work.
Yeah.
And recruiters can just bombard you with stuff that might be of relevance. So for me, I got a message from a recruiter within the rail industry through the railway and said, look, would you be interested in the position working on locomotive in Folkestone? And I was like, you know what, I'm going to take fucking anything at this point. So I went for an interview, and the guy was basically read my CV, took me on and said, look, I'm really interested in you. Would you be interested in taking this job? It starts in a month's time. And I was like, yes,
Perfect.
no dramas. I'm literally walking out the door from one. I think I finished work on a Friday. I walked into the new job on a Monday. And it was just that I was right place at the right time. Fortunately for me, I managed to get the job, and I now work repairing locomotives, trains, and wagons for the railway. And to be totally honest with you, if anybody else needs something similar to the work mentality of the military, jump in the railway.
I've heard that. I've really, really heard that. I know a few guys who work on the railways, and they said it's like another one is the NHS. Certain parts of the NHS are very like that. They've been compared to, I know guys who are like mental health nurses and stuff, and they've compared more like the rank structure and the top heavy side of it that probably don't need to be there. But yeah, don't want to go that route. But I have heard that about railways. It's the mentality, the humour, banter.
You get the similar sort of level of banter. There are a lot of squaddies or ex-squaddies on the railway. So, for instance, for me, I know a couple of guys that are also working on the railway. I got another guy I worked at Lid. He's now working for the same company down in the same place I worked for the railway. And it's a case of the banter's there, the humour's there, and it's also, again, the uniform side. You get given a uniform, get given your tool, get told what you need to do, where you need to do it, and then you crack on and get there. And I can't complain. And the money's there as well.
Yeah.
The money is good, which is another sort of pull factor to the railway, because you get sort of financially compensated for your time away. So if you go on a course, they'll pay you to go. They'll pay for all your board, all your food, everything's paid for, done, dusted. And then at the end of the day, all your overtime's available. And it was a thing, again, that squaddy mentality, I didn't realise how ingrained it was to work and be expected to work. Whereas in the job I'm in now, it's a case of, if I'm expected to work, I'm financially compensated for it. And they go, can you work this day? And I was like, I could work. We'll give you overtime. Yeah, all right then. So of course we will. And I was like, overtime. Never know about it in squatty
No.
fucking language. Overtime. What? You want being paid extra, working extra? No, not happening, fella. You're expected 24/7. Because that's pretty much what you do. You going on tour? Yeah, no drama. Go on tour. You will work when you needed to work, how you needed to work. You will work when we need you to work. Whereas, as I said, in Civvy Street, for instance, there's days that I can't work. I just go, look, can't work. And that fucking the day old adage of I'm sick. I don't need to go frog march to the med centre. I get a letter from the doctors to go, you can't go to work today. In case if I just phone up and go, I can't work.
I still feel guilty if I take a sick day. I mean, I've got some health problems where sometimes I can't go to work, but I'll work from home. I'm lucky enough that I can work from home. And every time I have to have a sick day, I feel as though I'm like faking it.
Yeah.
It's not right. They'll be sat there thinking I'm all because like
pulling
in the old days. I mean, Christ, I've been in units like, especially in the younger days, where if you wanted to go sick, you had to turn up in number 2s in the wash and shaving kit. And it's just to put people off going sick.
Your grip bag.
Yeah,
grip bag.
Just like,
wash kit.
It's like, what fucking why? I've got a fucking ingrown tongue. But my cat's attacking me. Get away. You're right. There is a very different mentality. And again, with work today, it took me a while to get my head round them. That when I was asked to do something, I'd stop what I was doing and do it. And they were like, well, have you not finished anything? No, but you asked me to do that. Well, I wasn't expecting you to do it straight away. Why'd you ask me then? Because that's what I was used to, You were given an order, you went off and done it.
Yeah.
And it's took me a while.
But it's also the fact of the amount of work you do as well. Do you not notice that as well? You do that job, then you go and do what they ask you to do.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, have you done that? Yeah, that's done. Have you done this? Yeah, that's done too. And they go, look at you, completely puzzled, like you've just literally just given them this treasure, There you go, it's done. And you get it all the time is how much people go, squatters can't get a job, but they're just not given the opportunity, because if they were given the opportunity, fuck me, you would have so much more squatties in these industries, because people see the what you can produce. Like my manager was like, again, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but my manager turned around and said, look, I'll take 5 more of you blokes on. If I could get you in the door, I'd take you on tomorrow, because is that work ethic, as you said before, is you push out so much more work than a lot of others do, and you're not afraid of getting stuck in, and you're not afraid to volunteer for stuff. In the army, you never used to volunteer for stuff.
No.
But you just used to get dicks for it anyway. But sometimes you go, yeah, I'm not doing anything. Yeah, if you need me to do that, I'll do it. Whereas a lot of my colleagues at my place wouldn't even put their hand up to say, look, I can do that extra day's work, or I can do this job, or I can't do that, but send me on a course and I'll go and do it.
Yeah.
It's not heard of for a lot of the mentality of squaddies, because they're so used to it. I mean, it's been drummed into them so much.
The other thing I found is when you ask other people to do stuff, and again, the mentality that I had at the time was, right, can you do that? Yeah, okay. But why are you doing it? I'll do it in a minute. I didn't ask you to do it in a minute. I asked you to do it now. And you can't shout and scream.
Yeah.
And lay the law down in Civvy Street. I may have been in trouble for that once or twice, but that's how it is. But it's getting round to that mentality that you're not in the army anymore. And it's only recently that I've kind of, like I said, kind of grown up, and I'm getting more comfortable in my skin type of thing, But it is what it is, and we all have to get there in the end. But yeah, I mean, just to recap on all of that, the transition for a lot of people is bad because they're not prepared. Some people are really, really prepared and they've got no issues. So I think it's also, you could say it's down to the individual to be more prepared. But a lot of them don't get time. They don't get the support from the unit. I've known guys working until fucking like a week before they leave, a day before they leave. And they're not given the time. People are getting sent on too. I'm out in 6 months. Oh, we'll extend you if we have to. No. I'm leaving the army. No, you're not. You're still in the army. We'll extend you. And I've seen it happen.
Yep.
Guys get brought back. I've left. No, you're not. In your last 28 days, you're coming back. You've been extended. I've seen that happen to a guy. And it fucks with their lives.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I suppose we've all been there, done that, and gone through it, and a lot of guys are going to go through it. And good luck to them.
My thing now is obviously I run a social media page which helps me stay sort of. I feel like I'm involved in the military some way, shape, or form. So I run a memorial page on Instagram. So I like to memorize the guys that have fallen in Iraq and Afghan every day that we lose troops. So that's for me to feel like I'm still connected to the military. And also is the fact that now I'm undergoing training to become a counsellor. Because for me, being able to talk to other guys and be able to speak out of how I was emotionally and physically during my transition, especially, not just days in the military, but when I came out as well. And that disconnect and that feeling like I've missed something or I'm missing something from the military. And for me, talking, being counselled is definitely a help that I had. And I know for a fact it's helped a lot of people out. So for me, is being able to have the time to then be able to train to become a counsellor. So then with my spare time and free time, be able to counsel veterans and other people that are in need, to just basically lift that weight off your shoulders, basically, and be able to know and let them know that you're not special. As horrible as it sounds, you're not special. There's so many people that go through the same crap, whether they're serving, whether they're out, they're transitioning out, it doesn't matter. We all feel and go through the same things and that same disconnect. So that's what I wanted to do, and that's where I'm going now. So hopefully I'm able to again, similar to you, what you do with your podcast stuff. So I want to be able to monetize social media so I can then leave my day job and become a counsellor to veterans day in, day out, and do it free of charge for them.
Yeah.
Now, that's what I would ideally like to become. Because as I said, and again, you've probably felt it as well, is that missing component that you do when you leave. Because civvies just don't understand what it is that you have done, what you've gone through, and how you've experienced life through the military. And when you get out, because you do get, civvies are interesting. Don't get me wrong. People ask me what I've been up to. It doesn't mean they understand a freaking word of it.
They don't understand it. And when you do start telling them, they're like, "What?
What did you do?"
Yeah, and then you get comfortable in telling them stuff, and you tell them a bit more. Then they don't want to know. You're like, "You're scaring me now." Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, you said that's an ideal thing. If I could get to the point where this was like, it's not monetized. I mean, it costs me money to do this. I've got like a buy me a coffee page where people can go over there and buy me a virtual coffee. Everybody buy me a virtual coffee, please. And people do. I get, it's not a massively popular podcast or anything by no means, but I do it for me. And as it turns out now, as we spoke about the other week, I do it for me, but it does help other people. I have had people approach me and say, thank you for doing that. It's made me think, or it's made me feel better, or even push me to go off and do a course or two, or change their job. I know one guy who's gone off to do Samaritans because he'd been listening to the podcast, and I was like, I was blown away with that. And for like yourself to go off and do the counselling courses, I'm on the fence whether I want to go down that route. I think I'd be good at it, ish, because I do a lot of talking to people, and not through the podcast. I went off and done the course we talked about last week. That went off and done that. Yeah. And that's helped me. It'll help me. It helped me understand. And since I've done it, it's actually helped me talk to other people who have gone through a bad time. Whether it's done them any good or not, or listen to me is another thing. But you just help. You can help where you can, and if you help one,
as I said, I think it's
you help one person, mate.
Yeah, it's definitely, as well, as I said, it's that thing of being able to connect onto the same ground. Because we are veterans and we've been through that same sort of that boat on that journey that they're on or they've been on, and then through transition and becoming a civvy, we've all done the same thing. We're all following this journey. We all experience things differently, but there will be certain stages where everybody feels the same. We all experience the same sort of level of disconnect, or that same sort of level of missing certain elements or certain aspects of what it was in being in Green Kit. But it's being able to converse and translate into what they're feeling and aligning with them, saying, look, I've been in that same position. I understand what you've gone through, and we don't have to waste one session or an hour's worth of going through the ins and outs of what it is that you are and what you've done and what you've been into. Because a lot of guys that don't understand that will need a bit of the backstory.
Yeah, they need a bit of context to it. So.
To understand, the context, as you said, the context of what it is that you're trying to explain to somebody. And for somebody from the military who's gone through that journey, I just feel like it's a help, because I can say to people, look, I know where you're coming from. We're all different people, but we all experience things very similarly, especially getting out. Admittedly, I was fortunate because I come out under my own term. But for some guys get that opportunity ripped out from underneath them, and say, look, thanks, but no thanks. We'll see you later, fella, and then they're chucked out at the gate, with or admittedly, they do get their resettlement, but they feel like they've got, but they would never ever have that opportunity to re-enlist, reserve, because you've been given that medical discharge or whatever discharge it is. You've got no chance and you've got no choice.
Yeah.
You have to survive on Civvy Street, no matter what. So that can be a huge detrimental sort of mental state to get yourself in, knowing that
there's pressure on yourself as well, isn't it? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right, I think we've come up to our time now. We've been on quite a while. 2 hours, bloody hell. That's
I was going to say, it flew by, don't it?
Yeah, that's flown, that is. Again, thanks for coming on and sharing your
story. No worries, thanks for having me.
And really, honestly, good luck with the counselling courses, and I hope you get qualified soon. I know you're halfway through.
Indeed, I am about sort of a month from my sort of level 3, and then I was hoping commence level 4, where I will be able to set up my own clinic and become my own sort of counselling practitioner, studio, salon, clinic, whatever you want to call it nowadays, in 18 months' time. So I've got a year's sort of placement. So that's when I'm going to learn the sort of the ins and outs of being a counsellor for. I believe my placement is they're going to try and get me in with veterans. That's my plan. If not, it'll be with the police. So it'll be a frontline service. Again, massively helps me towards sort of counselling. It'd be generally veterans as well. But again, if I get into the police, a lot of the sort of veterans do join the police force. So you never know, I might inadvertently help veterans of the military, but within the police sort of forum. So that will be something new and something different. So 18 months time, fingers crossed, be fully qualified. And hopefully my social media page, if anybody doesn't know, you do, in.memoriam 639. Hopefully I'll be monetized to that point where anybody that joins up, whatever, helps me build the channel, monetize it, and then all the money then will hopefully go toward me counselling veterans for free. That's the plan.
I wish you all the best with that, and I hope it goes really, really well for you, especially the money. If you get crack the monetizing bit, let me know.
Let you know.
Right, I'll stop the recording here then. Again, thanks for coming on.
Go for it.
Really appreciate it. Cheers.
No worries. Thanks for being.
I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I enjoyed recording it. If you could just hit the like button, and also if you could subscribe and hit the notification bell, that'd be great, because it'll help the channel grow. The more people will see it, the bigger it'll get, and the more guests I can get on, and the more people I can talk to. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, like I said. Look forward to the next one. Hopefully it'll be out next week as normal. Bye-bye now.